discuss some figures of speech, namely simile, metaphor, Homeric simile, and conceit. Now, first I'll discuss simile, then its comparison with metaphor, then Homeric simile, then conceit. I will also try to take the examples from day to day life and also from literature in order to explain my points. Now, let us come to simile. A simile is a figure of speech that compares two different things, usually by using the word like or as. You have to focus your attention to the words different and also on like and as. So, the comparison between two different objects by the use of the word like and as. Now, it's a kind of direct comparison. Now, similes use comparisons, as I have said, by the use of the word like or as. Now, there is a kind of simple comparison, but the simple comparison is not a figure of speech called simile. Now, in simile, we have two unrelated things. For example, if you say she looks like you, it cannot be an example of simile. It's simply a comparison. But on the other hand, if you say she smiles like the sun, then it will become an example of simile. I have seen many times that if I ask the example of simile in the class, so some ignorant student may give an example that she looks as beautiful as her sister, then it cannot be an example of simile. It's a simple comparison. Now, similes and metaphors are also often confused with each other. Simile, so here I would like to tell you the simile is a kind of explicit comparison, that is direct comparison, and metaphor is a kind of implicit comparison. The main difference between simile and metaphor is that, as I have told you, that simile uses like or as for in order to draw a comparison, and metaphor draws a comparison without the use of the words like or as. If I say, for example, she's as innocent as an angel, this will become an example of simile because she is compared with an angel, and the comparison, the word of comparison is as. But if you say she is an angel, here also she is compared with an angel, but there is no use of like or as. Now, why do generally writers, poets use simile? Actually, figures of speech are always used to make the language more emphatic, more creative. So, similes are an important tool that make the language more creative, descriptive, and entertaining. And when you read any kind of sentence where simile is used, so sometimes some abstract ideas are also concretized. The mind thinks in images and associations, and we can easily understand the point. So, there are some examples from day to day life. If you say, for example, he fought like a lion, it's an example of simile. He's as funny as a monkey, simile. My love for you is as deep as the ocean, simile. The water well was as dry as a bone, simile. He is as cunning as fox, simile. Or if you come out of your examination hall and if you say the poetry paper was as tricky as a labyrinth, this will again be an example of simile. Here, for example, in first sentence, he fought like a lion, he is compared with a lion. And then second, he is compared with the fun is compared with the fun of the monkey, and all these examples are there. Now, there's a beautiful example from literature. If whenever I teach a simile in the class, I always give the example of Robert Burns. Now, this poem of Robert Burns, "My love is like a red rose that's newly sprung in June of my love is like the melody that sweetly played in tune." In these lines, Burns, uses simile to describe the beauty of his beloved. The beauty of his beloved is as fresh as the red rose. Beautiful example of simile. Robert Burns, one of the 18th century uh, poets. My love is like a red rose. Now, if you see this poem, The Daffodils by William Wordsworth, now, the opening line of the poem, "I wandered lonely as a cloud." This again is an example of simile. I wandered lonely as a cloud. But here we have also a personification. Now, we have one example from Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. When Romeo talks to Mercutio before the Capulets' party, he makes the following comparison about love. Is love a tender thing? It's too rough, too rude, too boisterous, and it pricks like thorn. It pricks like thorn. Beautiful example of simile. Now, there's again, a poem by Christina Rossetti, A Birthday. The reference I have given in some other context. Beautiful poem and beautiful example of simile. My heart is like a singing bird. My heart is like a singing bird. Then my heart is like an apple tree. Then my heart is like the rainbow shell. So, this poem, the entire stanza is beautiful example of simile. Now, coming to Homeric simile. Now, Homeric simile is also called, epic simile. Simile which is used in epics. It's a kind of extended simile. What is it? It's a detailed comparison in the form of a simile. And there are many length, actually, maybe 15 or 20 lines of comparison. The word Homeric is used here because Homer has used this kind of device in his epics called Iliad and Odyssey. And similes are used in epics for ornamentation and illustration, and they also add dignity to the style. You also you can also call them long-tailed similes. Now, you see what is difference between uh, you know, uh, simile and Homeric simile. Now, in simile, for example, A is compared with B in order to highlight A. For example, my love is like a red rose. So here, my love is compared with a red rose, but the focus is on my love, not on red rose. Actually, red rose has been taken as an example in order to focus light on my love. So in simile, A is compared with B, and then we have the description of A in order to throw light on A. But as far as Homeric simile is concerned, in Homeric simile, A is compared with B, then A is forgotten, and we have a full description of B. And that is why this Homeric simile is also called long-tailed simile. Now, in Paradise Lost, we have an example, beautiful example. Now, in Paradise Lost, Milton compares the huge form of Satan sprawling on the lake of fire to the fabled sea beast called Leviathan. Satan is compared with Leviathan. This is one of the beautiful epic similes used by Milton in Paradise Lost. That Satan is compared with Leviathan. Now, what is this? It's kind of big whale of such great size that when it comes to the surface, it occupies many miles and gave the impression of an island in mid-ocean. Now, in this simile, actually, um, Satan is compared with Leviathan. Satan here is forgotten, and we have the description of Leviathan. So A is compared with B, then A is forgotten for some time, and we have a description of B. Now coming to another important device related to that, that is conceit. Now I'll talk about metaphysical conceit. Now, as I told you, that A is compared with B in order to throw light on A in simile. A is compared with B, and then A is forgotten, and we have a long description of B, Homeric simile. Now, in conceit, the comparison is totally far-fetched, and this conceit is an important quality of the metaphysical poetry. Metaphysical poetry, which was prevalent in 17th century. Now, Dr. Samuel Johnson, a famous poet and critic, he first coined the term metaphysical poetry in his book called Lives of the Most Eminent English Poets, published between 1779 and 1781. This is 1717. Now, in this book, Johnson wrote about a group of 17th century British poets like John Donne, George Herbert, Richard Crashaw, etc. Now, in this figure of speech, two vastly different objects are likened together with the help of similes and metaphors. Conceit is also kind of simile or a metaphor. There is a kind of hyperbolic expression. There is a kind of exaggeration. But when two things are compared, the comparison is totally far-fetched. It's incongruous, and that is why Dr. Johnson defines conceit as the most heterogeneous ideas are yoked by violence together. You're trying to make the comparison forcibly. So objects are totally far-fetched, and we have hyperbole, contradiction, simile, paradox, oxymoron, in order to cause a shock to the reader. And this device was very popular in metaphysical poetry. There is one beautiful example of metaphysical conceit that is there in the poem Valediction, Forbidding Mourning by John Donne, who is the master of the metaphysical poetry. Now, the poem Valediction, Forbidding Mourning. Valediction means farewell. So, a farewell forbids mourning. Mourning means to express sorrow. Now, here, lover is departing from the beloved, and beloved has started shedding tears on the departure of the lover. So, lover is consoling the beloved. Valediction, forbidding mourning. Farewell does not allow you to express sorrow. Why? He says that, though I am physically separated from you, but I am revolving, around you. Our two souls are basically one. He says, if they be two, they are two so, as stiff twin compasses are two. Thy soul, the fixed foot, makes no show to move, but doth if the other do. You must have seen the image of a compass. In compass, we have two legs. One is fixed, the other moves. So he says that that you are like thy soul, the fixed foot. You are like the fixed foot of the compass, and I am revolving around you. So the comparison of the two souls of the lover and the beloved are compared with two feet of the compass. So this is actually a kind of far-fetched image. Similarly, we have the example of metaphysical conceit in the poem The Flea. Now, in The Flea, the poet says, "Oh, stay 3 lives in one flea spare, where we almost you more than married one. Married are, this flea is you, and I am this, our marriage bed and marriage temple is." Now, if you read these lines, in these lines, the poet tells his darling that she has no reason to deny him sexually, as the flea has sucked the blood from both of them, and their blood has mingled in it. So the flea has become their marriage bed, though they are not married yet. So look at the far-fetched image that the flea is compared with the marriage bed. Actually, what happens in the poem, that the flea which sits on the face of the beloved, and beloved wants to kill it, and suddenly the lover says, don't kill, because if you are killing the flea, you are killing the three lives, because the flea sat on you, sucked your blood, sat on me, sucked my blood, and both the bloods are merged actually, and uh, we are married that way. So you have not allowed me to touch you, but the flea has actually done that. So flea is compared with the marriage. Again, a kind of far-fetched image is there. Now, To His Choir Mistress is again a beautiful poem by Andrew Marvell, another metaphysical poet. And in his To His Choir Mistress, this poem is actually, in this poem, the lover appreciates the beauty of his mistress, and requests actually and proposes her that she should accept his proposal. And time is very short. Let us now enjoy. Now this example which is there, there is my vegetable love should grow vaster than empires and more slow. Again, a very strange comparison is there, because he compares his love with the growth of the vegetables. His love is growing as the vegetables grow. Again, a very strange, very weird kind of comparison, but again, this is a beautiful example of metaphysical conceit. So what you have learnt in the entire video, that we talked about simile, which is an explicit comparison. I have also talked about metaphor, which is an implicit comparison. Now then I talked about Homeric simile, gave you the example from Paradise Lost, and then metaphysical conceit, and gave you the example from John Donne and Andrew Marvell. Thank you very much.